Greetings. My name's Guy Dauncey, and this is the show Change the World, where I like to set aside all the gloom and doom and depressing stuff for a while and have guests on my show who are into big, bright, bold solutions and a positive vision for the future. Kind of makes for a better everything, right? My guest today is Andrew Weaver, longtime friend, current leader of the Green Party of British Columbia, MLA for Oak Bay Gordon Head, born and raised in Victoria, played rugby in Victoria, right? Yeah. Degrees in advanced mathematics and physics, which I'm sure is very useful in the legislature. Canada Research Chair in...
I have to count to 42.
Count to 42, yes, right. Canada Research Chair in Climate Modelling and Analysis at UVic School of Earth and Ocean Sciences before changing to politics, and a lead author with the United Nations Global Reports on Climate. So, Andrew, you made the switch from being a full-time climate scientist into politics. For our viewers first, tell them, why did you make that switch?
Well, thank you. And first off, thank you for having me on the show. And
my pleasure.
For your viewers, I just want them to know that I've known you for so many years. And
yes.
In my academic days, I used to really enjoy doing seminars where you were. I'd frame the science of climate change,
yes.
and you would bring the perspective of the solutions.
Right.
And I remember, I'll never forget, we're going into high schools with you, and it was a great opportunity to work with you guys. So thanks for having me on the show.
Pleasure. So why did you change from the big climate crisis science to politics?
Well, it's, I've been teaching at the University of Victoria for 25 years, and I developed a course called Climate and Society. And in that course, I basically outline the climate science solutions, the scale of the challenge, and also the wonderful opportunities that are there for us if we take this issue seriously. And I've been lecturing for many years, and the whole course I'd frame it as this: the issue of global warming and whether or not we deal with it really boils down to one question. That is the question: do we, the present generation, care anything about future generations in terms of the quality of the environment that we leave behind?
Yeah.
If we don't believe in intergenerational equity, we don't care about the future, then really, as you know, global warming is irrelevant, because the decisions we make today will have a profound effect not on the decision makers, but on those who would have to live the consequences of those decisions. And delaying decisions is too late for those who have to live those consequences. And so I point out to them that if you want to actually deal with this issue, we got to go now. And in fact, there's three ways. My big three solutions are: first thing everyone can do is vote. Vote for people who will make this a priority.
Yes.
Number two, the second thing is you have a wallet. Everybody has a wallet, and they'll send a signal to the market based on their spending patterns about the direction they want it to go. And the third thing, of course, would be education. Tell everyone you know about 1 and 2. And invariably, the students would say, well, I don't vote, and they're all corrupt politicians, and all they want is themselves. And I'd point out that 30 to 40% of youth would vote, and 70 to 80% of seniors would vote, and seniors won't have to live the consequences, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And basically, I'd say, if you don't like these, you run yourself or be inspired to run. And ultimately, then I took a look in the mirror, and Jane Stirk asked me 4 times. It was the 4th time I said yes to run. And the reason why ultimately is I couldn't look my students in the face and say that I'm actually telling you something and I'm not willing to do it. And at the same time, it was precisely the time that Christy Clark started dismantling the climate policies that had been brought in place by Gordon Campbell. So I felt that, as a matter of principle, I would run with the BC Green Party, a party that had never elected anyone before, putting this issue on the table which would otherwise not be discussed.
Yeah. Well, the recent survey showed that when climate scientists are asked what they feel the future is going to be like, the word most commonly used is catastrophic about the climate crisis coming up. Like, it's a catastrophe coming here. So there was great hopes when we get a new Green Party and NDP, or NDP Green alliance governing the province, that we could have a really strong climate action plan. And now I hear that the NDP are chasing after liquefied natural gas again, which is a fossil fuel.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't reduce fossil fuels by burning more fossil fuels.
Well, this is, I went through an election campaign, as you know, in May, and I received a lot of very personal attacks by partisan NDP supporters and strategy. It was very personal to me. Rumors were spread, et cetera, and statements were claimed that I said that I never did.
Yeah.
And so it was very difficult, me going into the negotiations, thinking that I could possibly, work with a group of politicians who a party that really I felt played dirty pool in the election campaign. We had a very high road campaign, but nevertheless, ultimately, the reason why I came across to be able to sign this is, I looked at John, I looked at Carol James, and I truly believe that they wanted the same thing we did. We had shared values. And one of those in our agreement is the creation of a climate strategy to meet legislated targets of 40%, which will happen in 2030, and 80% by 2050. So you and I both know the numbers, Guy. If we're burning 64 megatons per year today, 80% reduction in 2050 means 12.8 megatons.
Yes.
One LNG plant is 10 megatons. 12.8 minus 10 is 2.8 megatons, which means that every other sector of our economy has to emit 2.8 tons, and the one LNG plant can do 5 tons as much as everyone else. We shut down Rio Tinto Alcan. Nobody can use landfills anymore. You might as well stop heating your home with natural gas.
And in addition to that, even though that goal of 80% reduction by 2050 is out there, the people who really understand this saying, we need to get to 100% renewable energy, ideally tomorrow. But in Washington State, the organization Climate Solutions is now campaigning for 100% renewable energy by 2028, within 10 years.
And they'll make it. Because when there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely.
And this is the thing, and you've actually been very instrumental, because you're an optimist like me.
Yeah.
And you always talk solutions. And what people need to realize is that they are there.
Yes.
And these grand challenges are actually also incredible opportunities for innovation if you want to take advantage of them. Mr. Campbell, when he was Premier, whatever you think of his other policies, he got this, and he recognized the innovative potential here. But we're struggling again in BC.
So me and my whole circle of friends, when the NDP chose to work with the Greens, we were...
When the Greens chose to work with the NDP.
When the Greens, we were exuberant. We were exuberant. There would have been a big backlash if it had been the Greens working with the Liberals. And so that sense of positive energy is still strong.
Yes.
Along with the success in getting the money out of politics, which hasn't had much media coverage, but it's a huge change.
It's a big victory.
It's a big victory. And so I would hate to think that the government could fall so soon on this matter. On the other hand, if we get the climate crisis wrong, nothing else really matters.
It is so
big.
The thing. We have right now a communication issue that we need to get together. I'm going to be meeting with John when he gets back.
Yes.
But I think John wants to do the right thing. I truly believe. I think he's been ill-advised by whoever. I don't think the people who've been advising him have pointed out the stark reality that you cannot add 10 megatons and expect you're going to reduce to 12.8.
Right.
You have no plan to get to 40% reductions.
But in British Columbia, we are probably the most climate-exposed province in Canada, not just the amount of pine beetle.
It depends which,
But if you look at a projected 2-meter sea level rise by the end of the century, 2-meter sea level rise is pretty devastating for the Lower Mainland. But if you get to 2 meters, you can't control the methane escapes. You get 20 meters eventually. We know that the last time the world was 3 degrees warmer, sea level was 20 meters. 20 meters wipes out most of the Lower Mainland. And it wipes out all of our economy, the I-5 to Seattle, the roads.
Yeah, but again, the problem with conveying this is it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it's 200, 300 years out, but it's inevitable at that point.
Well, that's it. This is what
we're locking in.
This is what the communications we have is that decisions we make today, we must make today if we care about tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Because waiting tomorrow is too late. Look, the analogy I use, and I'm sure you use it too, is you put a pot of water on a stove and you turn the element up to 5. It takes some time for the water to boil. And then you go, oh my goodness, it's too hot. And you say, I better turn it down. Well, you know what? Doesn't cool right away. And it's the same with the climate system, when 70% of the Earth is covered with water.
So what about the other solutions to climate action? What about transportation? What's the...
Well, we're actually pushing right now behind the scenes. It's public, but to try to get British Columbia to get a ZEV standard in place. An aggressive... Sorry.
ZEV standard, jargon viewer, ZEV. Explain.
Zero emission vehicle standard. Quebec was the first province in Canada to create a zero emission vehicle standard. What that means is, if you want to sell new cars in Canada, a percentage of those new cars must be zero emission vehicles. California, as you know, is a trendsetter in this.
Which effectively means electric.
Correct, yes. And so what has happened with Quebec's leadership in Canada is it's actually very difficult in provinces other other than Quebec and Canada,
Yeah.
to get an electric vehicle, because the production, people don't really want to
Right.
sell you an electric vehicle. I have one.
Yeah.
But the reason why is I drove off the lot, and that's the last time they see me, because I don't need an oil and filter.
Yes, I know, yeah.
I don't need
Yeah.
any gasoline, and so I need no
But
tune-ups.
Norway is planning to have 100% of all new vehicles by 2025.
Yeah. India, I think it's 2030.
India by 2030.
Netherlands,
Germany, they
yeah.
said 2030, 2040.
Yeah.
And some of the car manufacturers,
China as
like
well.
Volvo, they're saying every single vehicle
Ford, yeah.
will be. So,
And 40% of our household emissions here in British Columbia
Yes.
are transportation.
Absolutely.
This is a huge piece of the pie
Yeah.
where there's off-the-shelf solutions
Yes.
if there's a will. But I tell you, in BC, there's barriers. Look, if you want to install a charging station to charge an electric vehicle, I can't, if I do it, I have to give you the electricity, because I can't charge you
Yeah.
for electricity because I'm not a registered utility.
and most people are thinking, just sort it out.
Yeah.
It's a little thing.
It's a little piece
just
of
sort
regulation.
it out. Yes.
Trivial.
Yeah.
If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
What is required, again, I'm speaking to you, but I know you
Yeah,
know
good,
this, right?
yeah.
But is leadership. Is leadership to say, you know what, we're going to have a ZEV standard that beats California.
Well, the model I use is that after the Pearl Harbor, when America joined the war, 1940, January 1942.
Yep.
Now, and the motor industry had to change from making cars to making tanks and planes. Now, in today's terminology, they say, well, take a year to study it, have
Yeah.
a task force, and we'll do a trial. And they were told, get it done by January 31st.
Yeah. And
1
guess what?
month, and it got done.
Yeah. Well, look, and the analogy that I...
they were urgent.
Exactly. And this one that I like to point to, too, is John F. Kennedy's very famous speech in 1961 at Rice University,
Yes.
where he said, by the end of the decade, we're going to go to put a man on the moon.
Yes.
Not because not because we know how, but because it's hard and it's a challenge. And they did.
Well, I use that analogy as well, because they did not know how to get there.
Yeah.
They didn't, but they said, we believe in ourselves,
Yeah.
we can make it happen.
And they did.
Yeah.
And the innovation that emerged from that space race in the U.S. in terms of across science and
Yes.
engineering, it put
Yes.
the U.S. front and center
Yeah.
in the field. Again, it's just...
So a slight shift from energy. I know in British Columbia, our climate issue is transportation
You and I both get very excited when
and
we talk
buildings.
about climate.
We both, and,
I know.
and Andrew, we
I
both,
love it.
We both talk far too
I know.
fast.
I know.
So
Poor kids in schools back in the day.
we know that the climate issue in British Columbia, it's about transportation, buildings and forests primarily. So electricity is already effectively neutral.
Yeah,
but
97%.
the site to sea decision
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
to go ahead with the dam and say, and what do you feel about, is it still...
No, so people have asked us why we didn't, in our confidence and supply agreement, say kill Site C. The clear answer is clear. We campaigned on stopping it. We knew what a BCUC, British Columbia Utility Commission report would say. We felt the NDP campaigned on putting it to the BCUC. We felt then we agreed with them, and we expected the report that we came out. We knew it would come out like that. It came out exactly like we thought, that it would give them the political cover and to make this tough decision, because it's a tough decision.
Yes.
However, after the report came out and they said we're going to go on with it, it just like, I couldn't believe it because of the it's people will say, well, it's clean power. Sure, it's clean power. It's not producing fossil fuels, greenhouse gases from fossil fuels. But what it's done is it's killed the innovation in the clean energy industry. All those distributed small-scale producers that want to work in local communities, First Nations, they're all moving. Canadian Wind Energy Association left.
They moved. So I look at it and I say, well, if we were to go flat out on the climate solutions, and we do need to electrify every vehicle, and have all the houses on super efficient heat pumps, we'd need a whole whack more energy, right? And then I looked at how much that can be supplied, in fact, by wind energy, by solar, by super efficiency, and by geothermal. They work. The numbers add up, and the prices for wind and solar are half the price. Well, wind is now
much less than half.
Well, wind in Alberta was 3.7 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
And the energy from Site C is likely to be about 10 cents. If it's over budget.
I'm using the number 13 to 15 now because it's already at $10 million. So coming in. It'll end up being 13 to 15.
Yeah.
And the solar installations are coming in at 3.5 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
So the price, it's the trajectory for Site C is going up.
Yes.
Everything else is coming
down. It's going down, yeah.
And anyway, and the reason why it's going down, of course, is places like China have recognized the incredible opportunity for innovation if they go all in renewable energy, and the next thing will be storage. So because you couple the two together, and so while we're sitting here trying to chase the economy of the 20th century, they're saying, go ahead, Canada. Go and fill your boots with LNG and oil sands. We're going to go here.
Yeah.
And just today, actually, Fortune magazine put out today, when we're talking
Yes.
put out a piece talking that that Shell is now divesting out of the oil sands and is going 100% away from fossil fuels because they believe peak oil is going to happen in the next
Shell Oil.
Shell International is moving to divest itself in the future from fossil fuels. Their new investments are not going to be in fossil fuels. And the reason why is because they see peak oil in terms of demand being within the next decade.
Well, that's partly the fall in price in electric batteries means, according to the studies, that between 2020 and 2025, a new electric car will cost the same as a conventional car and have 400 kilometers range.
Right.
And so suddenly there's going to be that less...
And there's no maintenance.
No maintenance, less demand for oil, and that could push the price down to $20 a barrel.
Yeah. Well, even today, I know people talk about the price barrier of an electric car. I can tell you, I paid it off within a year.
By the savings.
Well, you pay $3,000 in gas a year. Well, I paid no gas.
There you go.
Ever.
Yeah.
You look at
And the electricity bill's tiny.
Well, yeah, I do charge it at home. I'm paying what, 12 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
So it costs me 1 cent a kilowatt, 1 cent kilometer. Car is 10 cents a kilometer.
So just say that again. Electric
For me
car.
to drive 1 kilometer, it costs me about 1 cent.
1 cent per kilometer.
Yeah, and it's
versus
about 10 cents.
10.
Yeah. But it's better than that because I don't have to get an oil and filter ever.
Yeah.
I don't have a radiator to break. I don't have an exhaust system to rust.
Yeah.
I have if you look at the Nissan Leaf maintenance schedule, the first maintenance is to essentially change the windshield wiper fluid.
Yeah, because there's so fewer moving parts.
Yeah,
it's much simpler design.
An electric car with a battery and electric.
So what about cycling? Here in Victoria, the Mayor of Victoria's been getting flack for putting in cycling. I would argue that every single cyclist is not a motorist.
Yeah, no, fair enough. No, I can, I have some sympathy for some of the arguments, and I'll tell you why. Is that Pandora is a they put the bike lane on the wrong side of the street, right? So you're bicyclists going up and down on the one side.
Yes.
It's the same side where you basically park a bus or a taxi. People get out of the bus and then they walk into cyclists.
Right.
So I obviously I support the cycling lanes.
Yes.
But I would suggest that listen to the planners to get them on the right side of the streets and listen to people because you have to bring people with you, as you know. If you don't bring people with you, and so there has been some pushback.
Okay.
But I'm a huge cycling fan, of course. Yeah.
So let's shift gear entirely and talk another big topic, which a lot of people are experiencing, and it's the housing crisis, the crisis of affordable housing, whether it's the homeless people, the people who are couch surfing, the people who can't afford to pay their rent, people who can't find a place to rent, the people who want to buy and just given up any hope of buying with the prices being what they are.
Yeah, I mean, we're about to announce what we would like to see in the February budget in terms of a housing strategy.
Right.
And central to that, in our view, is copying and mirroring what has just been done in New Zealand. It's done in many countries in the world.
Yes.
Is essentially saying this: if you are not a Canadian citizen or permanent resident elsewhere, or if you're not paying taxes here, you're not living here and working here, paying taxes here, you can't buy property. So what we're targeting is not what passport you hold. We're targeting people who are using our property as a place to park capital.
Yes.
And it has having a very real effect, particularly in Vancouver, lesser in Victoria, but particularly in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And the secondary effects we get here in Victoria and on Vancouver Island is people saying, I'm out of Vancouver, I'm cashing in, and I'm coming across to the island, and I can buy that $3 million home in Vancouver. I'll pocket $2 million and I'll dump $1 million.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well,
so our prices go up as well.
Well, I've seen the wave. It hit Victoria first, then it got to Couch, and
Yes.
it hasn't. It's now beginning to reach even Port Alberni.
It's
you
certainly
can buy
in Nanaimo and Parksville.
You can sell in North Vancouver for $3 million and buy in Port Alberni for $250,000.
Yeah, yeah.
Money in the bank. You can retire at age 45.
Yeah.
Why would you not do that?
Well, exactly. Yeah, and that's
But
what's... and so, again, the problem is jurisdictions like ours with 4.5 million people in a very stable economy with limited amount of land, particularly in the island, Metro Vancouver, it can easily be influenced by 7.5 billion people with a lot of foreign capital.
Yes.
So Australia, New Zealand, and look at in Denmark, you have much more. You have to live there for 5 years before you can buy.
Yes.
But Prince Edward Island has foreign restrictions. Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta have restrictions on agricultural land. etc.
So what percentage of the cause of the crisis do you think is being caused by the foreign ownership?
We know in Vancouver of the higher end, it's 25% of higher end houses are foreign purchase. We know of all purchases. These are the ones that are declared.
Yes.
Part of the problem, of course, is you can game the system, and I'll come to that.
Yes.
We know 10% of Burnaby purchases are from foreign purchases, and it's about the same in Richmond. But these are the ones we know of. We know, for example, that if you go into a partnership, let's suppose the real estate is purchased in a partnership, you can hide foreign ownership there.
Yeah.
If you purchase in a corporation,
There's clever schemes.
There's
Clever schemes that
so there needs to be.
So let me throw some other solutions at you. Urban infill and taking single-family areas and zoning them for duplexes and triplexes. Yes or no?
Yes and no. You have to be smart. So what we campaigned on is encouraging higher density in transportation corridors.
Yeah.
So for example, along SkyTrain routes.
Well, that was the next thing.
Yeah.
Much high density around transit hubs and public spaces.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
So,
a key role for housing cooperatives and non-profits.
Yes, particularly with respect to, in Victoria, a very key element is accommodation for students on campus.
Yes.
The problem we have here in Victoria is that University of Victoria and Camosun both want to build accommodation, but they're not allowed to because it'll incur debt which goes on our AAA bottom, blah, blah, blah. But this leads to a rental crisis because these students who could be housed and with somebody who on the campus
and
are in the community.
And understanding it's the cheapest form of new housing to give because the students don't need a whole house, right?
No, exactly. And the universities and the colleges, they want to invest in it because they have a captive audience. That is the students they know will fill it. They know they'll collect rent.
So next question, empty houses, tax them or ban them?
So empty houses, I think you'll see us making recommendations to be included in the budget, which would allow municipalities, not only in Vancouver, to apply taxes as appropriate, and also regulate vacation rentals like Airbnb.
Yeah, I was going to say Airbnb with full suites. This is I'm distinguishing an Airbnb when you got an apartment and you have one room from an entire full suite. Yeah. Tax them or ban them?
I think tax is a way to start. We have to. They don't pay hotel tax.
Yeah.
I think it's if people start to have to pay the true cost again, it's about internalizing externalities in economic speak. There is a social cost to not having housing stock lived in.
Yes.
You should be required to pay that social cost. So taxation can do that. Banning is a very heavy instrument. We think it's a crisis in terms of foreign ownership.
Andrew, why do you think it is, with the housing crisis being such a really big concern, we're not seeing more active protest on the streets and people striking and demanding and getting...
It's interesting. Again, in the 1960s, if we had an affordability crisis, we would, of course, be seeing people in the streets over this issue. I guess society has changed, and there's quiet suffering, and it's almost overwhelming. And when you're trying to struggle to, make ends meet, you don't really have the free time at your disposal. But there are organized groups. I look at one called Halt Vancouver, which is a group of organized.
Halt Vancouver.
Halt Vancouver. It's a grassroots organization.
Yes.
Something like 4,500 members that were very influential in the election campaign, pushing this issue. I think that we've got a lot of pressure to ensure that we hold the NDP accountable for their provinces. We're going to make announcements. By the time this airs, we will have made announcements of what we'd like to see, and we'll be pushing the NDP to deliver on their promises. And I'm confident that we can start to take aggressive steps in the February budget. I certainly hope we are. I mean, the NDP basically got a lot of seats in Vancouver. There were sitting cabinet ministers that were defeated in Vancouver, like Suzanne Anton was defeated by Mr. Chow. And the housing affordability issue was an important reason why.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. So switch to your Green Party leader hat.
Oh, yes.
How's the Green Party doing these days?
Wow. Who would have thought when I was sitting there at University of Victoria as a prof, first off, that I'd be in politics, number one.
Yes.
A leader of a party, number two, and a party that's growing. The Main Street Research just did a public opinion poll here in British Columbia that was released, the data was collected on January 3rd and 4th.
That's recent then,
That's recent. It was before some of the issues of affordability we've been raising. And in that poll, we had 27% popular support for BC Greens.
Wow.
34 for the Liberal, 34.5 I think, and 38 for the NDP.
Wow.
The margin of error is plus or minus 3.5%. So it's We have, we know that we went from 8% in the election to 17% in 2017.
Yes.
We've got more than 200,000 new people vote for us, over 300,000 voters. We know that we set a record in terms of fundraising. We raised $1.45 million in 2017. And when I was first elected, the party was raising about $100,000 a year. We raised about 15 times that last year. And what's more important is that not a single penny of that came from unions and corporations, because we made the principled decision not to accept them from unions and corporations. So that has been dramatic growth. Our membership's up 50%.
And as a host, I should say that I'm not sure whether it's conflict of interest I have to declare, but I'm both a donor and a member, right?
Well, thank you. Yes.
So in case people accuse me of being, and I'm inviting NDP people onto the show as well as
no,
Green
you've
Party.
always
Yes.
you've been. I mean. We've been friends for a long time, and so we've had dramatic growth.
What's the support on the island? Well, in that poll, did it show?
We didn't break it down. Well, you know, we know that we have, so what people struggle to understand is that, and why we've started to go, well, the same poll showed us that the NDP are third in the interior, so Liberal, Green, then NDP, out of Metro Vancouver and Vancouver Island. So what we've spent a lot of time trying to get people to realize is that we're not just a purely environmental party. We believe in the kind of new economy, that it's not about environment or economy or social issues. It's about triple bottom line. You can't have a healthy economy unless you have a healthy society and a healthy environment. It's not one or the other. So we've got very, very progressive policies in terms of economic plan and agenda, jobs, but it's all about the new economy, not trying to chase us back to the 20th century, but recognizing the opportunities of today.
Quick wrap-up thing. When you think back to your life at UVic as a climate scientist and your life now as a politician, how does it compare emotionally and spiritually?
That's, I was getting frustrated in the university sector because I've been working on this problem and nothing was getting done. I have frustrations here, but I'm in charge of, I have the ability to facilitate change. This is the most incredibly rewarding job, and I'm an optimist like you. We have so much we can do.
I don't use the term pessimist and optimist, I use the term defeated and determined. I think you're determined,
I'm determined,
like I am.
Yeah, and my son's hilarious because he doesn't use the word realist, because he would argue that realists are actually pessimists in denial. So I like determined, and I'm determined, and I'm determined that, for me, I would not be able to stand by in the legislature and watch us go backwards after all that has happened. So, and I'm excited about the way forward.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, Andrew. Thank you for your leadership on the province.
Real pleasure.
This has been the show called Change the World. My name is Guy Dauncey. One of my small contributions has been this book called The Climate Challenge, 101 Solutions to Global Warming. So if you want to know what else you can do to tackle that crisis, you can find this in libraries and bookshops.
And I have 2 copies.
You have 2 copies. So thanks for watching, everyone. And tune in next week for more exciting guests and more stimulating conversation. Thanks then.